continuing to dominate in the market, grow well faster than our competitors are. We're going to all look back, 9 months from now, and I think we'll be pretty happy.
Welcome into the Ronnie V Show. I'm super excited about my special guest I have on the show today. I'm interviewing the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of Zeta Global, Chris Greiner. Chris, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for doing this interview. I hear this is your first retail interview. Is that correct?
First one, yeah, Ronnie. When we jumped on before we started recording, I was giving you a hard time saying all of us at Zeta are jealous that you're spending all this time with David, and we don't even know we don't get to participate. So this is great.
So when I reached out after I did the interview with David, I was really looking, and I actually was seeking you out. I'm a nerd on the financials. So I was like, I want to interview the guy that knows everything about the financials, every single decimal, right? So I was like, I want to interview Chris Greiner. Can we make this happen? And then you guys reached back out to me, and I was super stoked that we could get this together. But I don't want to waste too much time. I want to give the retail community as much information as possible in this time that we have together. So I'm just going to jump straight into the questions. So my first question is, who is Chris Greiner, right? What role do you play in Zeta's long-term market strategy?
Awesome. Fun place to start. Well, I'm a wannabe product person and a wannabe seller. I happen to do both of those things in a former life. I'm a CFO today, but it allows me to truly have like a firsthand experience of what it's like to be in the shoes of the people, Ronnie, that you love to meet with every single day that create the most value in the company, which is creating code and selling it. So my role is to make sure that their life is as easy as possible. They get every possible resource they need so that we can grow faster, cut all the red tape out of the equation, and deliver on not just our near-term goals, but really my focus is on how do we keep as a company executing to all of our long-term goals. There's lots of milestones and mile markers along the way. Those are the quarters that all of us love to report on. Obviously, we just had a great one. We've had many great ones, but the focus is how does this company continue to get bigger and bigger and more profitable over time? And that's what my focus is.
My next question is, talking about earnings, coming off of those amazing earnings, the 18th straight beat and raise quarter, absolutely amazing. But coming off the earnings, what are you most proud about? Not just like a headline number or underlying that we've all already seen, but really as a CFO and understanding the company at a very high level, what's that one metric that really says Zeta is a compounding machine and we're going to continue? This is just the beginning.
Ronnie, if you drew a line in the sand and you looked at all public companies and you were to put that line at, call it 105% net dollar retention, right? Which is pretty modest, but let's say you drew the line there and you were to invest in every single one of those companies. They are growing their customers year over year. They're having loyalty. Chances are those customers who are returning and spending 5 cents more every year on the dollar are good referenceable customers, which means they're probably a pretty good benchmark for your ability to land new ones. I think you'd win all day long. For us, we put up our very best net revenue retention metric of 120%. Now, mind you, 2024 was 114%. So for me, that metric is a reflection of a lot of things working in unison. It means first and foremost, you're delivering outcomes that your customers cannot get anywhere else. And you're delivering it at such a magnitude that they want more and more and more of your platform. For us, it's also a reflection of the work we're doing with some of our newer customers who we signed in 2024 and rapidly scaled throughout 2025. And a cohort of those are our large agency customers, which is a new buyer of Zeta when you really zoom out. In the last 3 years, there's an entirely new buyer of our platform that we really weren't working with that are now starting to scale and be very loyal to the platform. And what we shared on the call was of those large agency customers, the number of brands that they're rewarding us year over year grew by 80%. So for me, it's the healthiest of metrics. My kind of next closest second was our platform was relied upon across all industry verticals of the economy. Of our top 10 verticals, 9 for the first time ever in our history, not just as a public company, in our history, 9 out of 10 grew over 20%. So you love the grand slam, you love the home runs when you're a public company and you kind of have a big quarter, but nothing makes a CFO happier, frankly, than when it's a lot of singles and doubles adding up. And those are two great metrics that demonstrate that.
My follow-up to that, you kind of already answered. What was the single biggest proof point that the market should take away? I think we kind of answered that. Another question I want to jump into based off earnings, right? So I love the graphic of showing the life of a user of Zeta Global, the
Yeah.
life of somebody who starts from day one, less than 1 year, how much money they're spending, and how they're continuously growing as more time goes on. Talk to me about that slide a little bit and where you really see that going, how Palantir did with AIP, how they spun that up a lot faster. Talk to me about that.
It's my favorite slide in the whole deck too, and for multiple reasons. First, it's published annually, and that's kind of the best body of work is when you zoom out over a 12-month period. How have you continued to progress and build, land, expand, extend with customers? But what's great about that slide is investors can go back now many years for that same snapshot and see how much it's continued to evolve. And the punchline is, spoiler, it's continued to have this very nice up and to the right. But what generates that type of progression, that land, expand, extend, is a willingness to start small, $50,000 to $150,000 on something our customers are spending tens of millions on with our competitors. So it's almost like, why wouldn't I try it? And then from that very first instance where you're spinning up a customer data platform, or you're starting to leverage Zeta's data, you're starting to activate with maybe one or two channels, Zeta is giving you as the customer perfect transparency, not just to what you're doing with us and the ROI you're getting, but the ROI you're getting outside of our universe. So you can do a true compare and contrast. That leads them to realize that I'm getting a better ROI with Zeta than otherwise, which then tends to lead to staying on one of three use cases. I can either help you retain, grow, or acquire new customers. But chances are when you're beginning with us, you're choosing one use case and maybe one or two channels. And as you pointed out, as you go from your first 12 months to your next 1 to 3 years, you're staying on that one use case, but now you're adding more channels. And as you get more and more tenured on the platform, you're doing more and more and more. I'll give you a real world example. We started back in 2019, 2020 with a large insurance company with a $50,000 pilot, pretty modest, where we went to them and said, we're going to help you lower your cost to acquire new auto policy insurance customers dramatically. You're going to start with email, but we're going to begin with that acquire use case. Within the first year, that $50,000 customer became a $10 million customer. 2 years later, we went from the customer acquisition use case and only using email to then expanding that to using connected TV and display video. They grew from 10 million to 25 million. In the most recent, call it early 2025, we renewed for multiples of 25 million, and we started to add use cases. So what we see from those experiences is customers that use more of what Zeta has to offer on the platform obviously spend more, they get better outcomes, but they're happier customers as well. So where I think this could go, look, I think before we know it, in the blink of an eye, we're going to have 7-year, tenured customers on the platform. And, if you just draw a line from where progression could go, it's not out of the question that those could be, $10 million on average customers in the near future.
Yeah, I really like that part about the call as well, where you guys actually were saying, okay, here's our 100,000 to 1 million customers. Here's our 1 million plus customers. And we actually think we're growing and doing so great that we believe that we're going to have that 10 million plus, right, in the near future. So I love that part about the earnings as well. I thought you guys crushed it.
Thank you.
With not just your earnings, but all the commentary as well. I mean, me and Nick were sitting there, like we were live streaming it, and I'm just like jotting down so many quotes from you guys. There's so many. The fact that you guys understand where your guys' stock price is at without talking about that, because people don't like that. But just understanding as a company, like we want to bet on ourselves. Yep. And when our stock gets dragged down because of whatever else is going on out there, we want to be buyers of our stock. And I love that. But leading into my next question, talking about more of, right, retaining customers, and what probably is one of the biggest drivers of that is you and David have both said that for every dollar that is spent into the company, $6 is returned, and that was run by Forrester. And you guys want to get that to $10.
Yeah.
So what has to be the true operationally to hit the target, and where does Athena move the needle most?
Yeah, the short and simple of it is the more of the platform our customers use of that Zeta can offer, whether that is going from one use case to many or going from one channel to many, they get a better ROI and they have a much higher NPS score. So for us, Athena was all about how do you take friction out of that process? How do you make it so easy, take all of the seams out of the platform to, in the past, if I was a marketer, as great as a Zeta marketing platform is, I was doing all my discovery. So much of my time was spent finding data and then building intelligence and then building programs off of it. Today, that discovery and that workflow process is done for you by Athena. And while Athena is working, it's giving you insights that you may not have thought about. Have you thought about, let's say you're working first with Athena on that customer retention use case. What Athena is going to be able to do as she's building this program and this, audience to activation strategy, she's also going to point out, did you know that there are these X million dollars of customers that are not your customers that are actually showing intent for your product or your competitor's product? Would you like to activate to them as well? Why wouldn't you? So for us, it's getting the customers to use more of what's available, if you will, on the truck. And then Athena takes all of the seams and all of the friction out of that process to make it that much easier for them. Our first experience pre-Athena was with our Zeta Opportunity Engine, Zoe. It was advanced, nothing like Athena is. But what we discovered was customers that were using Zoe and those that were not were spending 2 to 3 times more on the platform. So it stands to believe that Athena can be at least a similar level of ARPU expansion, if not far greater.
How do you guys as a business take what Athena's doing and how it's wrapping everything into one? And how do you take that into trying to steal clientele, grab new customers? How do you really pitch that to really be like, hey, look, it's not just the marketing platform. It's not just XYZ that you're getting. You're getting this beautiful package with a bow on top. And we have the data saying for every $1 you spent,
Yeah.
you get $6 in return. How do you approach like the sales of Zeta?
You can go at it from two directions. I think, and both resonate, but they resonate in different ways with different large enterprise and agency buyers. First, you can start off with total cost of ownership. Today, if you look inside an enterprise, whether it's the largest banks in the world, the largest health systems in the world, the largest airlines, retailers, they are spending an enormous amount on point solutions and disparate vendors that give them access to data that's, by the way, probabilistic as opposed to deterministic like Zeta. They are spending on multiple marketing clouds, many different activation partners across email, mobile, social. We give them a platform that can do all of this in one instance at a far, far less expensive entry point. And again, not even afraid to start small. Or you go down the route of ROI, which is for us, the name of the game is transparency. Show them the work that you're performing, show them the outcome of that work in a measurable way that they choose. It's not as though we're grading our own homework. Our customers have the ability to select from marketing industry methodologies, whether it's last touch attribution, multi-touch attribution, U-shaped curves. They decide how they want to measure. And then you give them the perspective of how does that measurement compare to everything else they're doing. And we have the combination of a better entry point and better price point in terms of total cost of ownership and a better ROI. That's a recipe for a loyal, happy, and growing customer.
Yeah, and going back to that chart, obviously that's why you guys have
Exactly right.
the progress of where they come in at less than a year and they're spending X, and then they're here 5 years later spending even more and with an omni channel.
Yeah.
My next question to go along with that would be, I loved whenever I saw TKO and seeing their team talk about Athena. Can we expect more of that from the people using Athena? I know we're not fully rolled out with Athena until the end of the first quarter, but can we kind of see more of that? I think that's a really, really big talking point, not just for you guys, but for investors as well.
We couldn't agree more. Look, 51 out of the 100 Fortune 100 trust us and use us every day. 120 of the Fortune 500. What's been impressive, and I use that in a little bit of a kind of a facetious way, is it's difficult to get customers to be references. A lot of what they see as their secret sauce of beating their competitors is using Zeta. So we're doing our level best. It is like a super high priority of ours to make sure that our customers are getting the outcomes, but like want to give testimonials on the experiences they're getting. So it is absolutely our intent. It's super powerful. It's very helpful for me on the road with investors because I give real world examples. So we are totally aligned in that desire, and we're optimistic Athena can be that unlock.
Yeah, to have a AthenaCon or something like that. I'm sure you've heard Nick talking about that, and he pitched out to me, and I was like, that sounds awesome. Moving on, so Athena is going to be attached and going to be that basically supercomputer that runs the entire marketing platform of Zeta. What is the strategy around? I know you guys have said that it's going to be just an add-on for free right now for everybody, but what is the strategy around Athena long term?
It's my number one focus area, frankly. I was with investors yesterday post earnings, and one of the investors asked, what's your focus area? What's kind of high on your list? And number one on my list right now is we believe so deeply in what Athena can do to transform our customers' experiences. Now we need to build in the wiring, if you will, the plumbing inside our platform to be able to show the following metrics. First, how is Athena being adopted? To your point, it's going to be activated and available. You don't need to turn anything on. You don't need to download anything. It's just available to our 600 plus customers end of the month of March. How do we show as a company? First, internally measure with the intent to externally measure these metrics. Adoption. What adoption is leading to the use cases they're solving for? How do those different cases of what they're solving for, how does it drive revenue? And then how's that revenue directly related to Athena? I think for us to be able to use your words, unlock from this Sasgeddon, is we must prove. It's one thing to say, it's a whole other thing to prove that what you have is the artificial intelligence disruptor in marketing. You are not going to be the disrupted. So for us, getting that wiring done to be able to first measure and then report externally on the experiences we're seeing. And I think what that's going to lead us to, Ronnie, is really interesting views, probably views that we haven't thought of yet, as to how customers are using Athena. And I think that could lead to maybe no change, or they might make sense to create certain specific SKUs for the most common use cases tied to Athena. So we'll see. But right now we're in heavy, let's build the ability to measure it, and then, kind of let that guide us to how we can further monetize. But right now, this is all about making our customers more successful and a lot easier to use the platform.
Yeah, you got to get it out there and you got to prove it. And that's how you do. That's the best course of action, in my opinion, as well. So talking a little bit more about Athena and talking about how search engine optimization seems to be that it will erode as we go forward for generative optimization. You guys have been talking about this. You've been since about September of 2025.
Yeah.
Huge partnership with OpenAI. Talk to me about, as a CFO, what is the strategy? What is the mindset around GEO and the TAM?
Yeah, it's interesting. You nailed it, right? 6 months ago, we put out the new product announcements around generative engine optimization. We were one of the first to release that capability, and it was early. I wouldn't say we were picking up sales in volumes throughout the fourth quarter, but we really started to now see an uptick in interest, in demand. We started to sell the first versions of the product, of the channel, if you will. Agencies have been very interested in the capability. And you think of it as a way to, first, how does a brand appear higher up within the LLM search criteria? But even more importantly, what those brands are trying to understand is, once someone's done some exploration or they're showing interest and intent for my product inside the LLM, and they eventually bounce to my website, how do I unmask who they are, right? How do I figure out who is showing intent kind of outside of that walled garden system? So there's a lot of ways we can help them. OpenAI is an incredible partner. Their technology is powering the voice element of our platform. Obviously, it's all Zeta's intelligence and Zeta's organic code and AI that's creating the outcomes in the execution profile. But they've been a terrific partner in the voice component. And I think they could be a much bigger partner in terms of expanding our relationship down the road. What you want to first do is have a great initial experience with one another. We've gotten to know each other really well on the technical side of things, which is a great beginning point. I think the next natural step is on the go-to-market.
Awesome. I love that. I love the commentary around that. I know, there hasn't been too much about that, but I think that you kind of just answered all of the questions. You don't just jump full force into any like partnership with a company. You got to kind of learn how each other moves, and you got to do the tango together, right?
Yeah,
So before you go into get married or something.
that's exactly right.
um Probably our final question. I'll wrap it up with this. From a CFO perspective, what are the 3 numbers investors should track each quarter to understand Zeta's compounding engine?
Yeah, look, I think I'm super high on revenue growth, right? It can tell you a lot of things. It's tempting to say beat and raise, but look, at the end of the day, you want as an investor, is the company I'm investing in taking share, right? And by hand over fist, if that. Our market is growing, call it 10 to 15%. The broader marketing advertising ecosystem, we're going double that. So that's a lot of disruption that we're making. I think keeping those growth rates at a multiple of what the market is growing is going to give you a sense for customers leaving our competitors and spending more with Zeta because they're getting a better outcome. ARPU growth is really important. We spent a lot of the call talking about how do we get more of our customers using more of what Zeta can offer. That is a very good quarterly metric to be able to see, is the average spend per customer increasing? And our model is for it to increase 12 to 16% year over year every quarter. So it's not as though you have to kind of guess, is that on track? We tell you what we need to get to our long-term goals. And then look, you want to make sure you're efficient in delivering growth. And for me, operating leverage is really, really important. I think the last time I looked, there's less than 10 public technology companies that over past 5 years, called 6 now years, have grown consistently over 20 and expanded free cash flow margins. We're one of those 10. I think it's like 8. So, for me, it's revenue growth. Are you taking share? Are customers spending more with you year over year, adding to the platform? And are you doing it efficiently? Are you generating strong free cash flow? And obviously, we just got to positive net income and positive GAAP EPS. And we said we're going to get to a positive full year GAAP EPS now and kind of off to the races from there.
I gotta follow that one up just because we're talking about the profitable quarter.
Yeah,
Phenomenal job there. Free cash flow, in my mind, is the lifeblood of a business. It cannot
totally.
be manipulated. It is what it is. And you guys are crushing it on that front, not just with your free cash flow margins, but with your free cash flow expansion quarter in and quarter out.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the
But
fastest growing part of our business. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But Wall Street really, really cares about EPS and that net income, obviously. And you guys are at that inflection point where you're now flipping to that. You guys talked about on the earnings call about 2026 delivering that. What does it look like? What has to go right in 2026? But also not for this just to be a one and done year, and then 2027 we revert back. I know that's kind of far in the future, but let's talk about
Yeah,
that.
no, we are for us, 26 is the beginning of more of positive net income and GAAP EPS. So it's not as though we're looking kind of to have this be a one-off thing. In the callbacks, in the Q&A session on the call, I talked about our range to kind of set expectations in the right place is anywhere from 2 cents to 4 cents for the full year of 2026. For things to go right, look, we have to, it's probably conservative, as is that's our approach, right? We like to give ourselves door A, B, C, D, E, and F to get through, and doors close during a quarter. That's just reality, right? So, I think 2 to 4 cents is a good starting point for us. It's obviously dependent on share price, which we all want to be higher. So if for some reason, we're somewhere on the lower end of that range, in the middle of the range, because the share price went higher, I think we'd all be happy. But at the end of the day, we're going to continue to be really disciplined in how we issue shares, very, very disciplined to make sure that the adjusted EBIT that we generate drops to free cash flow, to your exact points, the lifeblood of the company. And then I think continuing to dominate in the market, grow well faster than our competitors are. We're going to all look back, 9 months from now, and I think we'll be pretty happy.
I think we will be too. I can go out farther than 9 months in my projections, but I think that is the perfect spot to end this interview. I am so happy you agreed to do this. I'm so glad that you got your first retail interview out of the way. I can't wait till the next one. Hopefully in the near future we can get on this and do it again, maybe after a couple more quarters or something. But thank you so much for coming on to my show. I really appreciate it. The retail community appreciates it. Do you have any last words to say to the retail community or investors out there in Zeta?
First of all, very grateful for you. You don't you don't have to thank me to do this. This is my job. It's neat to get to meet a new set of constituents, right? That are super important to our company. I think it makes up over a third of our total trading volume. So this is an audience that matters an incredible amount. And for me, it's a privilege to get to spend time with you, and happy to do it again in the future. And good luck to you. You're crushing it yourself.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. But I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us, and we will catch you guys in the next one.